Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can I welcome you all here to Cabinet today, special Cabinet today, and I can also welcome anybody who may be watching from home. We do have a couple of apologies today. Councillor Brian Jones is still unwell. I have called in to see him at home, and I know he's waiting an operation in the next few days, but he's pretty well in himself, but he just can't be here. And Councillor Bob Greenland is currently with HMS Monmouth today. He's representing me there, so he's on the high seas and experiencing whatever they do with on that ship. Anyway, so welcome everyone. Before we do too much more, I just think it would be nice. Well, not nice. It's not a nice thing at all, but to reflect on what's happened in Brussels this week. I'm not asking for silence or anything, but I just think just a few seconds to reflect on the absolute awful things that have happened there this week. Our hearts from Monmouthshire, I'm sure you'll all agree, go out to the people of Brussels and to all those services who are involved in helping those people there. There are still many critically injured in hospital, and sadly so many lost their lives. There is just absolutely terrible situation, and I'm pleased that our nations are standing together in the threat of this terrible situation. So I just wanted to share that this council is totally behind whatever has to be done to stamp out this sort of thing, but initially to offer our thoughts and deepest sincere condolences to those families who've lost their loved ones. So those thoughts are going to be with a lot of us for a long time, I'm sure. Okay, colleagues, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Good afternoon, Liz Hackett-Payne, Cabinet Member for Education.
Phil Hobson, Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member for Community Development.
Jeff Burrows, Cabinet Member, Social Care, Safeguarding and Health.
Okay, and we have a Leader of the Independents with us today.
Good afternoon, Leader. I'm Simon Howard, Leader of the Independent Group.
Thank you, everyone. There are several other people here. For those of you at home, obviously, if anybody comes in and speaks, they can introduce themselves at that point. Thank you very much. Can I go on then to declarations of interests, please, Phil?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I need to declare a personal interest as a Governor of Mountain House School.
Okay, any other interests at this point? No? Okay, if you... Sorry.
Excuse me, Leader, if I may. Councillor Murphy, is that a local authority appointed Governor at Mountain House? Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, so that's just a personal interest.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if anybody else finds one as we go through the agenda, as normal, please verbally tell us and fill in the appropriate pro forma. Okay, so we move on into item 3A, and this is recommendations from Children and Young People's Select Committee following the call-in which was recently held following the decision made on the 3rd of February by Cabinet. And I'm pleased that we have the chair of the Select Committee with us today, Councillor Penny Jones. Perhaps I'd like to ask Penny if she wishes to add something from the Select Committee's perspective as chairman, obviously.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would. First of all, I'd like to give some history about Mandate B20, which is to do with the Additional Learning Needs Review. We discussed this in the Joint Committee, Scrutiny Committee, on the 16th of December, and it's been minuted that we thought the documentation regarding Mountain House could be misleading, and members expressed the need for the Phase 3 strategic review to be completed urgently, and also requested a timeline. And then we come forward to the call-in date. We had concerns, although we do understand the need for, as do Mountain House, for a reduction in funding. And that is not the question. The question is the timing and the immediacy of this 250,000 reduction. Prior to a review being completed, it seems it is putting the cart before the horse, and it is a cause of concern to all the select members. It's not the reduction per se, as we say, because this was long overdue, the matter not having been addressed for 6 years, since 2010, and that in itself causes, forms another question: why? Alongside the current deficit, which is approximately 145,000, or different amounts in different papers, this exerts extreme pressure on the financial situation and prevents Mountain House from going forward, for instance, marketing aggressively. Given the current uncertainty regarding the future of the school, in the absence of a strategic plan, the question must be asked, what next? And another question is, at this point in time, and wasn't for the call-in, but is now, who will complete this review? What is the timeline? Stephanie Hawkins has now left the authority and retired, so we would like to know if it is going to be completed and when. As I say, it comes back to the select committee agree that a reduction has to be made, and that is not the question. The actual question is why the immediacy, why the amount, and how is this going to affect Mountain House? I do note the recommendations, which are welcome to an extent, but again, as long as the questions are answered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Penny. Obviously, you had your discussion in the Select, and this is the report from your Select Committee, so we recognise your further questions, but I think clearly the third recommendation with those regular updates to the Select will probably give you the opportunity for those to be answered and for you to continually challenge the points you are making. I do thank the Select Committee for their observations around this issue and the recognition of this was part of a budget mandate, and as it was part of a budget mandate and has been moved as a part of the formal budget, it became part of the council. It becomes the council's decision, if you like, but recognise there were concerns around that. So the recommendation, we note that there is a recommendation, the first paragraph of 3 recommendations, which suggests there is an opportunity if the council want to review this, because it, as I said, it is now a council's decision. It's not a cabinet decision. But if council wanted to, if cabinet were minded to ask council to look at this again, they would have to bring it forward to a future council meeting. 1st of April is a proposed date here, and it would have to then come forward and because there was a decision already made. The standing orders would have to be invoked in paragraph 16 to enable the council to reconsider this. That's process, that's easy enough. The bit which is less easy is the fact there would be need to find £250,000 or similar to block this position or to alter this position. That is not a recommendation this cabinet are in a position to be able to make. I don't believe we are in receipt of spare £250,000 here, so I would be struggling to accept the first recommendation. However, the other 2 recommendations are extremely important, and I welcome and thank you for those. And they are that the Cabinet ensure that the funding situation of Mountain House is reviewed regularly to ensure that the school is achieving its recovery plan and appropriate support is provided by the local authority. And I believe that Nikki Wellington and her team are in very close liaison together with the Cabinet member with the school to make sure that they are very clear and working hard as they would be, to address that recovery plan. So I think we've got confidence as a cabinet that that element of the recommendations is being carried out. And then the third recommendation there, that regular update reports to be provided to the Children and Young People Select Committee on the financial and non-financial position of Mountain House School, and I think that's addressing your point, Penny, around what is the future of the school, and that those regular reports are provided to both to the executive head and the chair of governors and the cabinet member, and all would be invited along to those meetings to agree the way forward, and that would be a timetable which a cabinet member can set. So I absolutely welcome those, and I can understand why the select committee are wanting with some urgency some answers to those questions. I think that's fair. So I'm going to open it up to Cabinet Member first of all, and then other members for further comment. Liz, would you like to?
Thank you very much, yes, and I thank Select, and I thought it was a very useful discussion at the call-in process that took place fairly recently. I think also work has been done since that Select call-in with the chair of Select and the vice chair as well, and various officers and myself, in forging a way forward. We're looking at a meeting with Mountain House, myself, relevant officers, the chair of CYP Select and the vice chair after Easter, to look at ways forward. May and June, we're looking at a meeting with Mountain House to look at the budget and the staffing issues there, and then information back to Select in probably September. When we had the discussion in Select, one of the things that is quite apparent is that the new acting head at Mountain House is relatively new. It started in January, and they have had to put an awful lot of things in place and get to understand the budget. The chair of governors is relatively new as well, and it is the thinking that it needs a little bit of time to let people set in place and be able to get a better picture of going forward. I know that finance officers have met more than once with the school, and we're looking at helping them in every way that we possibly can as far as budgeting and planning forward. So this was all in agreement with Select Chair and the Vice Chair. So I feel quite confident that we're taking this seriously and that it will be looked at in a very sensitive manner, ensuring that Select's views are taken into consideration.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Liz. Phil, do you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Lead. I would just add that apart from the financial considerations which Liz has covered, the school continues to make very considerable progress in just about every aspect of its recovery. It's not just a financial recovery plan; it's systems, it's the whole atmosphere at the school, procedures, and everything's moving along there very, very well.
I just think perhaps it's, I'll bring Jeff in there, and then I'm going to perhaps ask Sarah to reflect as well. Jeff, please.
Thank you, Leader. Really, just from my context, I think it's important that now that, as of yesterday, we have a new head of children's services in place, and we can start looking forward to hopefully a little bit more continuity in that area, that there will be opportunities to start exploring the relationships and the aspects of the service that Mountain House provides, that we can find common ground with respect to children's services. So early days, but I think there is opportunity there also.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to ask Sarah, because Penny, you did raise, the Chair of Select did raise some additional points, which and I'm sure Sarah would want to reflect on the report anyway, but also perhaps those wider points. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes. Firstly, I'd just like to say that the school are working with us very well in order to develop a robust recovery plan, which we will receive in September and then bring to Select. There are no issues currently from the school in relation to this, and most importantly, there is no effect on the curriculum or the well-being of the boys that are at the school currently. We've had a very productive meeting today with the school this morning, and to mirror Councillor Murphy's points, there are very positive moves afoot in the school currently. We feel strongly that the deficit situation is recoverable, and we are working very closely with the executive head, the governing body and the wider team. In relation to the questions that Councillor Jones has raised, of course, ALN and the review has not been led by one person. It's been
of that budget. I'm afraid as leader of the cabinet, I'm not in a position where I feel I can recommend that to council. I think that would be an irresponsible position for this cabinet to take. Sarah, I'm sorry you want to come in.
I'm just minded, Leader, to suggest that maybe a seminar, whichever forum, on recovery plan processes is delivered by my finance team, because I think that would give comfort and clarity on what phasing means in terms of recovery plans for schools, which is where my comment around the school being positive around this comes from.
That's a good idea. Or perhaps at one of your next selects, Penny, you could open that up to all members to help them understand the deeper situation around Mountain House and get this clarity, which is clearly not there at the moment. No, Simon, we'll finish that with this page. No, so fine. Okay, well, I'll let you all
Could
decide.
I ask then, on some clarity, which really is confusing me now, if we set a budget with a £250,000 saving on mandate 20, I think it was, why actually did this come to Cabinet then so many weeks after again? Because we'd already set it. You were asking to make a decision on something we'd already made. That's what really confused me within the Select as well. I know it was the budget, I know it was the funding formula, but this was on your report to make a decision. Well, we'd already made it. Is that just something which was a mistake? Or was it just the way we do things and perhaps it shouldn't have been on there?
Okay, thank you very much.
Quite a simple question.
Yeah, very simple question. Yes, we did consider it. It was part of the budget mandates, wasn't it? That's where you spotted it. That's where the Select discussed it in December, you said. And it was a decision then which also came, as believing, to Cabinet in February the 3rd. And then after that, Select have decided to call it in. I mean, it would have been helpful if members had have perhaps got involved deeper at the time when it was as part of the mandate. Perhaps that would have been more helpful. And now we've gone through a protracted process, which is wanting to discuss something which has already been formally moved and accepted by full council, which is a difficult situation, one I've never experienced in 17 years here either. But Chief Exec perhaps wants to reflect.
Yeah, I'll try and answer a very simple and direct question with a very simple and direct answer. There was an unnecessary sequencing issue that was created, which will not reoccur. It came to Cabinet as part of a consultation response on changes to the LMS funding formula. In years that follow, we'll make sure that those changes are incorporated prior to the budget being settled. So it was, in fact, an unnecessary administrative issue that I think has given rise to this debate. I think all of the information was available to members to form a view November, December, January time, because all of the information was included within the mandate conversation.
That's very helpful, Paul. You're quite right. I forgot that the Schools Budget Forum, they actually made made this recommendation to full cabinet, and that's their role, which is fully representative of all secondary, primary schools and other bodies. You know, I forgot that. It's very important. Thank you for raising that. And there is a member of Select Committee also on that forum as well. So, okay, so thank you once again, Select Committee. The recommendations are before us in 3 paragraphs. They're not numbered individually, but I'm minded to not move the first paragraph, but absolutely support and recommend the Cabinet support the 2 paragraphs, the 2 recommendations captured in the 2 the bottom two of the three recommendations. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, so we move now on to another school-based issue, and this is about Llanfair Kilgedin VA Church in Wales Primary School. Liz.
Thank you very much, Leader. The authority has been on a journey with this statutory process on the proposed closure of Llanfair Kilgedin VA Church in Wales Primary School. This is the last part of the process. This process is set out by Welsh Government. It is a statutory process, and in effect it comes to 100, makes the school capacity of 1655, so not that far off its capacity at present. The capital investment in the new facility will be £1.2 million, and this has been secured as part of the 21st Century Schools programme. So there's quite a large investment there going into the special needs resource base. The county, and in particular the Cabinet, have always been committed to offering as many lifelong learning opportunities to across the board, with that inclusion being the foremost runner there. We want to have 21st century schools which are fit for learning and ensure that children and young people have access to modern learning provision, which will raise educational standards for all learners. So I bring this to Cabinet today, and the recommendation is that members consider the objection report, which is as per the other report in Appendix 3, and agree to implement the following: the reduction of the school capacity and establish the special needs resource base at Monmouth Comprehensive School.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, a formal process. Thanks for taking us through that quite clearly, because at first it was a little confusing, because you think 1600 is what it's going to be, including the 55 place, but actually what we're saying is 1600 school plus a 55 special needs unit, total capacity 1655, opposed to a current capacity of 1671. So that's very clear. Thank you for that, straightforward, and we welcome any additional facilities put in place to address ALN, but in an inclusive way within the school, and that is really fundamental for our way of thinking going forward. Sarah, anything you want to add?
Nothing formal to add, Chair, thank you, other than I'm very happy to answer any questions that anyone might have on this matter.
Colleagues, anybody? No? Dimitri?
Yeah, two questions. First one is relating to the SEN provision there. Is this going to impact on the decision making for Derry View, given that if the Cabinet give the go-ahead for the building of this new unit, does that pretty much mean that Derry View is going to shut? Because I remember in the Derry View paperwork that there was talk of this unit opening as a kind of to accommodate those people if they do need to be moved out of mainstream, for example. So I was wondering if there was an implicit link there, and I'm wondering if that link still exists, and therefore agreeing this link sort of means the other one is, or, you know, is the mindset. And the second one is on Monmouth Town. How many pupils reside, it says how many pupils reside outside catchment area, but how many of them live outside Monmouthshire?
Just picking up on the Derry View and the special needs resource basis that we're discussing about Monmouth Comp. Obviously Monmouth Comp Secondary School, Derry View Primary School. There was, in the Derry View report, there was some links there, but they are two different things. This is to do with the build of the new school, and so in effect they are two different things. So this will not have an impact other than the inclusivity that we're looking at in all secondary schools, to have some facility there for additional learning needs. So that is the ethos in all of the secondary schools.
I'll bring Sarah in to add on that, please.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of impact will be only positive in the sense that we will be developing an inclusive environment with expertise within that environment, and the expertise will be outward-looking and outward-reaching. So that will certainly be, there will certainly be a base included in one of our wonderful secondary schools, but with work going on across our county, particularly in relation to Monmouth Comprehensive, across the north of our county, reaching out to all our schools, including primary, to support them to better understand and cater for children with additional needs.
Okay, thank you. And Roger, are you wishing to declare an interest?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, would you like to do that?
Governor of Derryview School.
Thanks for that. Sorry, Liz.
I'm so sorry, I forgot to pick up on the other part of the question about the catchment area and whatever. And I might have to bring Matt in on this because I'll be completely honest, I can't remember every single figure. But the gist of Monmouth Comprehensive School is that basically a third of the children come in from out of county. There is ample capacity for in-catchment children within that school.
I think you need to qualify that as well, that there's an equal amount, or probably more, go out of Monmouth, out to other schools as well. Matt, would you like to reflect on that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Obviously the numbers vary year on year, so we try and look at an analysis over a period of time. The latest figures that look over, say, a 5-year period would indicate that Monmouth takes approximately 30% of its intake numbers from outside of the Monmouthshire borders. So we usually accommodate everyone within catchment, and then the numbers fill with about 30% of children from outside.
And I don't think that you cannot legally stop people from coming over the border into your schools, so you can't say we're shutting down the boundary so that it's only Monmouthshire children can go into a school. In fact, in the past, I believe we I remember years ago, there was sort of somewhere like 900 odd children coming into secondary sector and just over 900 going out to either Newport or Ross or Forest of Dean. There was a real complexity around the borders. Likewise in Chepstow with oh gosh, what's the school? I've forgotten the name of the school there. The Wydene against Chepstow. It's an interesting dilemma. Please.
Sorry, that prompts the question, do we know how many people or children leave the Monmouth area, catchment area, then, to go outside of the Monmouth catchment area? Because then that would obviously have, if they all change their mind, for example, worst case scenario, school would still need to be able to accommodate them, wouldn't it?
The school can accommodate all catchment children. Yes, absolutely. And in all honesty, I wouldn't ever want to do this because it isn't ethical or whatever, but if you took up the point about children outside Monmouth, the school would be empty because there's a third of them coming from outside. And it's the geographical element of where Monmouth School is. It's so close to the border that children living in the Forest, Hereford and whatever, it is their nearest school. As much as it is the nearest school for some children in county, and that is just the way it is because of where it's built. And it's so close to the border.
And that's an issue with any border, all the way through the borders. You can't do much. You have a flow in and out across the borders with our neighbours, and that's just a fact of life which we have to manage. And that's the way it is. Simon? No? Okay, so the recommendation there in 2.1 that members consider the objection report in Appendix 3 and agree to implement the following regulated alterations with effect from the 1st of September 2017 in line with the reasons stated in paragraph 4 of the report. In 1, to reduce the school capacity from 1,671 places to 1,600, and 2, to establish an SNRB at the school. All in favour of those? Thank you very much. Okay. Brings us on to the whole authority strategic risk assessment, a report that those of you who are frequent attenders of Cabinet will recognise. It's before us every year, quite rightly so. So throughout the autumn, select committees have scrutinised and helped shape the Council's risk assessment, and today we have the opportunity to consider the report. The risk assessment makes sure that strategic risks are identified and monitored, that risk controls are appropriate and proportionate, and that senior managers and members systematically review and take actions to manage the strategic risks facing the authority. It's been prepared in line with the Council's risk management policy. It now includes pre-mitigation and post-mitigation risk scores to make it easier to assess the impact of proposed actions on risk levels. This is different from in previous years when there was only the one score. The risk assessment covers 3 years and includes risks at a high and medium level at some point during that period. And these scores are based on the likelihood of something happening and the potential consequences if it does. Lower level risks are managed through service plans, which members can view online on the hub. You know, all your service plans, and indeed the risk register is on the hub, where you'll always find that live and up-to-date version on there. The risks include impact of reducing budgets and increasing demand, the potential that we may not achieve income targets, pressures on capital budgets from our investments in schools, for instance, and ICT infrastructure and investment in the county. You would have all had an opportunity to look at the full assessment, which is in the Appendix 1 to the report. We are not seeking to avoid all risks. Well-managed risk-taking is a vital part of our business as the organisation adapts and changes, and the very nature of the world we're in at the moment requires us to look at things in different ways, and there is always an element of risk around that. Our approach to risk management focuses, like I said, on the next 3 years. And I've also asked officers to explore how we can build on our existing processes to look at capturing longer-term risks to better reflect the principles of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. That act requires us to plan at least 10 years, but ideally 25 years ahead. So officers will be carrying out well-being assessments across communities, which will provide really important information to help us, the organisation, plan for the longer term and to think about the well-being of futures, as well as the current residents, visitors and businesses. So with that, colleagues, I'm going to open it up for discussion. As I said, in Appendix 1 you have the risks. They're not dissimilar to risks you've seen in previous years, and you'll note the lead member and the lead officer responsible for accountable for those risks. Colleagues, anybody wish to add? No? Dimitri?
Yeah, two, if I may. First is, I might have missed it. I've tried looking for it. There's no risk over Europe and leaving Europe. I thought that might be in the risk register. I thought there might be something about risk about leaving Europe, given that so much funding's involved. I don't know. I thought that would be in the risk register, personally. Second one is it was about housing. Now, I know it's included in the first risk. It's briefly mentioned. It's mentioned once. But I would argue, from an anecdotal evidence as councillor, and that housing is actually becoming a bigger issue in Monmouthshire, given our demographic change. And I'm just wondering, should that be a separate risk now, maybe, and get some more focused attention about the housing demands, given that housing is so critical to well-being? Presumably it might be captured under well-being, but it's just been mentioned once, given the demographic changes and the property prices in Monmouthshire. Maybe it should be separate.
Yeah, it's a solid point. I'm going to invite Matt Gatehouse to reflect, because there's certain areas which we need to cover. Matt, perhaps you can enlighten us more.
Yes.
Thank you, Leader. If I just sort of pick up on the second point first, I think housing. I think that's a very fair point. I mean, this represents a view at a point in time, and members will be aware it's arrived at this point after a journey through Select Committee and various DMTs. It's something which is a live document throughout the year, and Well Cabinet is taking a look at this today and signing it off at this point in time. If there is emerging evidence, such as, and sort of draw back in the European position here, we can build that in as the evidence becomes available. So issues such as housing, as we begin now to conduct the well-being assessment over the next year, housing may well be one of the key issues we start to see emerge through particular communities. And as that evidence comes to light, it will be the sort of thing that we look to build into the risk assessment in future years. On the point of Europe, I mean, it's an ever-moving situation. I think as an area, of course, Monmouthshire is not one which benefits, as some of our neighbours do, from amounts of European funding, but nonetheless, in terms of what that means for our business and residents, there are considerable risks to the potential exit from Europe, and perhaps something we need to look at the evidence on and consider building in. And particularly as we take that longer term 10 and 25-year focus, Leader, that you mentioned, that sort of longer term planning is something we will be looking to reflect in the enhanced risk assessment.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And I think, yes, we'll get let's see what happens on the 23rd of June. You know, I don't disagree. If there is a country's decision that we pull out, then we need to factor that in. There are things like the RDP, you know, which is a couple of £3 million a year which flows through our area. I'm sure there are other things which indirectly affect us, and there's clearly things which are out of our control which affect us and affect our residents. I'm not going to open up a debate on Europe, though, here today, okay? Yeah, but please.
It's not about the general issue. I just thought, why are we waiting until June? Shouldn't we be thinking about possibly what could happen just in case there's a leave vote? We are a rural county, obviously, you're a farmer, and farmers get quite a lot of subsidy from Europe. And I'm just wondering, you know, it's going to affect quite a few of Monmouthshire residents in some capacity, and surely we should be thinking about this just before.
I'm erring in the grounds. If you start, I'm not going to talk about farmer situations because I would then need to declare an interest. I'm sure, no doubt, all of us probably are touched by Europe in some way or other, possibly without even realising it. But I think we are all very mindful of the situation. We'll all be following the debates very clearly and closely. And don't forget that if there was any change, radical change, there would be a significant period of transition, which would require us and every organisation to relook at all of its planning, especially if it was affected anyway by European funding. Simon.
Yeah, I just note, Leader, the one main risk that we have there is, I think Liz touched on it with the 21st Century Programme. And I think that's, as Cabinet and Council, we should be minded to keep a watchful eye on that, and I mean wide open on delivering the 21st Century Programme. But the rest, they're all medium risk, bar that one, and I think that was for financial year next year. But as you all know, you'll be sitting down in the next few months, come after the summer break, setting budgets for the following year, so it is in there. But apart from that, Leader, I think everything else, I think Selects and hopefully Cabinet will have their eye on these risks. And the ICT one as well, that is another one there because of substantial amounts of money which will be needed or required to take that forward to a next level. But I think that will come back possibly to Council. But apart from that, I've got nothing else, Leader. I'm not going to even mention Europe. Dimitri's made his mind up with the sounds of that. I haven't even thought about it. It is a risk, but we won't touch on that. But I think it would be wise. I think it may have been the Deputy Leader mentioned, if things did materialise, actually it would be all phased in over a programme. We just don't step out the door after we've made a vote and that's it, if that's the decision. It will be phased in over quite a number of years, so I'm sure we will think about that quite strongly. I'm sure the Prime Minister there would probably have mechanisms in place to support where we go when we're not handing our money to Europe.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to. I'm on the verges of a debate. No, I'm not going to open up a debate on Europe. Sorry.
Risk.
It's about risk, but if it's not mentioned in Europe,
It's just about risk. I mean, I think there would be far more risk from a change of government at Cardiff Bay or in Westminster to the mechanisms of local government funding or change of local government. That's far greater a risk for us than any result of anything that may or may not happen.
that's a really solid point, actually, Phil. That is, yeah, the greatest risk we have is the current government getting back in, and that's the greatest risk to Monmouthshire. Anyway, let's move to the recommendation. The recommendation at 2.1 is that Cabinet members approve the risk assessment shown at Appendix 1 as a realistic and evidenced appraisal of the strategic risks facing the authority over the next 3 years. All in favour? Thank you very much. We're now going to move into the last item, which is in committee. So live streaming will now be discontinued. So thank you those at home who maybe watched in. Sorry, looking. Sorry. Have I missed a report?
We've got a different
No, there's a previous agenda had a report in which has come out. So yes, we're moving into committee now. So press and public will have to leave, and I don't think we have any with us today.